Hello everybody, welcome back. Look what we have here. What a lovely little machine. It is a proper SL55 AMG. Customers purchased this car. It's a runner. Everything is quite nice on the car, apart from a few little details. So let's get in the car and show you what we've got. First off, I'm going to say excuse the mess, because we have been working on this already and we've had to pull a few bits out. Now, the car starts and runs, as I'm going to show you here. So let's get it started. But we have a problem. So if we switch this off, we will see we have no mileage display. And the reason is because it was purchased as an ongoing project and the previous owner has fitted an ECU kit. The part of the kit that they've changed is the gear selector, the electronic ignition switch, which would normally be in here, but because we've been working on it, we've got it dangling down there because we've put the old kit in it, and the engine control module, which if I pop the bonnet, I'll show you that ECM is around here. The ECM is underneath this little compartment here, which is under these multi-plugs here. That's where the engine control module is. So although the car starts and runs, there's a few other vague fault codes that he's happy to live with. Now he's asked us to do a mileage correction to correct the mileage, but it's not as easy as that, because the chassis number is written into the instrument cluster and it's written into the electronic ignition switch, which is this one here. That's the original. Customer was told that the fault for changing the kit was the electronic ignition switch. Now we've tested that. I'll probably chuck it on the bench and show you that that actually tests okay. What we've found is the engine control module is actually faulty. Now we did consider doing what he said, which was to change the electronic ignition switch, clone the data from the original to the one in the kit and use it on the kit, but the part numbers are different. The processors are different all inside. The engine control module is a different part number. It ain't working doing it that way. So we've gone about putting everything back to original and repairing the ECU. And I'm going to show you how we've done that. So stay tuned. Let's get this rigged up on the bench and show you some little tricks. Okay, so long story short, we're now inside the engine control module and we're going to read the data out of this ECU. And we're going to analyze that data. I've already done this, but I'm just going to recap what we had to do and show you the process that we went through for putting this one right. So I'm going to get the chip off the board. It's going to be a bit noisy now, and show you how we read it and how we put this data right and what the actual problem was with this unit. This is the chip we're interested in removing. Many of you will know it's called an EEPROM. Few of you might know that it's called a 95P08 EEPROM. And what we're going to do is just heat it off gently with some hot air. Obviously my hand's going to be in the way. I'll have that off in no time. There we go. That is now off. And that's what we've got to read to get all the immobiliser data and the VIN number and check the data out on this chip. So the next stage is to, I don't know if you can see that, very carefully drop the chip into the reading tool, and once that's mounted up, we read the data, and there we have all the immobiliser data there. We're going to compare it. Now we're going to save that and we're going to analyse it. Right, so what you see in front of you here is the EEPROM file out of the faulty ECU, and here we also have the EEPROM file out of the running ECU kit. Now immediately you'll see, you probably won't, but I'll show you, this here is the VIN number out of the kit. We can see that in the hex file. Now in the original, that line starts there and finishes here does not display the VIN number. As you can see, if you know Mercedes VINs, they start with WDD or WDB. This one's off a scrapyard kit. Now, this one is fragmented. There is some sections of the VIN number, but the WDB isn't there. So immediately I can see that that file is corrupted. Interestingly, when we connect a diagnostic tool to the car with the running kit, it automatically finds the VIN number and does a full scan as it should. When we connect the original kit with this fragmented VIN number, the diagnostic tool no longer recognizes the chassis number, and you have to enter it manually to see what car it is. So initially what I'd done, I added in the chassis number into this section of the EEPROM, put it back on the car, and lo and behold, the scanner recognized the VIN and it allowed to do a search for that VIN, no problem at all. But it was still corrupted, because if we look further down the file, we will see these interesting sections of data here. Now, on the running kit, we can see that the EEPROM is completely blank Fs. It's unused space in an EEPROM, and that doesn't get used by the car manufacturer there. That should all just be FFFFFF all the way through. The data stops at this line here, whereas on our corrupted one, we can see that these strange vertical lines that actually follow up. When I analysed it closely, these what are zeros, which shouldn't be there, carry on up and actually replace the sections of the chassis number there with zeros where it should be data. So in this section of the data there's all things like the immobiliser data, configurations on the car, all sorts of things which are relevant to that car. And it's just gone missing. So we're not able to reconstruct it from scratch. There's too much corruption there. But what the plan is to virginize a known good EEPROM. Now, I'm not going to use the one out of the kit because it's the wrong part number, but what I have found is a EEPROM which is not corrupted off a different car. We've got thousands of EEPROM files, and we do this for a living, so we can always play with things. What I'm going to do, I'm going to install the customer's chassis number to a known good EEPROM, and then I'm going to virginize this EEPROM to go back on the board. It will then be a virgin unit, and once that virgin known good EEPROM file is on this board, we then need to program it to the car. But that's a very specialist thing. I'm going to run through with you how we do that, because aftermarket tools won't do it. You need Mercedes Star, as I'll show you shortly. So bear with me and I'll just get this virginized and back on the board. Right, so here's what the donor virginized VIN adjusted EEPROM file looks like. You can see I've written in the customer's chassis number into there. It no longer has the corrupt sections of data. So those, let's call them stripes. Those stripes that run up the EEPROM file that shouldn't be there are no longer there. It's virgin, which we use some really expensive softwares which does this job, and we send them off to people. If you ever need an ECU virgined, check out our website. We do cloning, virginizing, programming, all sorts of stuff. ecuconnection.co.uk. Check us out and see what we can do for you. Let's get this back on the board. Before I forget, I will actually program that file to it. So there's the EEPROM in the reader. We're now going to write this file to the EEPROM. There we go, and we're going to compare it. So now it's a virginized EEPROM. We'll now put it back on the board. Right, on to the job of swapping the ECU out. Multi-plugs are a little bit hard to get to when you're holding the camera in your hand, but they are down here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you getting these out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last 5th one. There's the donor kit ECU. There's the original one. I'm going to slot that in. Okay, ECU is in. Make sure you put the water cover on. There, that is in. We're going to swap out the gear selector, and it's going to just unplug this. We're not going to be removing it because there's the neutral position switch cable here. We're going to leave that in. We're just going to, for speed, we're just going to mount this one up next to it. Okay, not sure if you can catch this or not. There's just two plugs that go into the gear selector. So those two are in. The last thing we're going to do is swap out the electronic ignition switch. So here are the two electronic ignition switches. That's the kit one, which I'm going to sit aside. The original one we're going to be putting back in. There's just two connectors, large connector, small connector, which are there, and the park neutral position switch there, which we're going to plug in. That's going to be connected to the old gear selector, but we're only going to get the car running just to show you how to do it. So let's get that in. That's a bit of a fumble. Right, that's in. There's the key. Now, as we know, this is a virginized ECU, and what happens if I try and run it now? Well, let's get the ignition on to start with. You can see we have mileage, which is all good, but if we go to crank it, foot is on the brake, we get nothing. So next job now is to program in the engine control module. So let's show you what we can and can't do for programming them in. That's the interesting bit, which is probably why you're watching this video. So hold tight. Right, on to the programming section of the video. We've got the power supply hooked up. These actually have two batteries, one at the front, one at the back. For consumer unit electrics is in the back. If you're doing a lot of diagnosing on these, it sometimes pays to have power supply on both of them. We have the ignition on. Can't actually see that, but it is. Here we go. You can see ignition's on. We've hooked up already. It's identified it because we put the VIN number in. We're going to go into electronics and we're going to show you how to code these in. Now, what I'm using here is the Autel scanner, the MS909. It's a really good scanner. We use it all the time in the shop, but it does not code these in. I have tried with all different aftermarket tools: Autel, Think Tool, Launch, Top Don, VVDI, the Abritus, replica of the Abritus tool. I can't afford the original, and nothing is doing it. So let's run through with it anyway and show you how you're meant to do it. So we go into here, learning processes, teaching of the DAS system. Right, so what you need to do is to read through here. It's possible to change the VIN number. We've done that anyway. Read through, and is the immobiliser learning process to be run now? We go yes, and we wait to see what it says. There's the VIN number. We have to confirm it. That is correct. Please start the engine. Well, because the fuel pump didn't cut in, it's not going to work, because you'll hear the fuel pump cutting when these go properly. So now we turn the key and we get nothing. Nada. It just doesn't allow it. So I have tried, come on, focus you fool. Right. So I've tried with all sorts of things, and none of these aftermarket tools do it. It will time out in the end, or we can cancel it. But try as hard as you might with all different tools. At this point, it does not run. unless there's a little trick which I've missed, and you can leave comments in the comment section below if you think I'm doing this wrongly. But now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get Mercedes Star out on it. I'm going to run through exactly the same, and we're going to see if that runs. So let's cancel that. We'll try again with Star. There we go, it's given up. So let's try with Star. Right, so now we have Mercedes Star connected. We're going to put the ignition on down here. As you can see, we've got the mileage displaying, which is good. We're going to go into passenger cars. It's W230. Find the 230. Then look at the VIN. It's 230474. Find the 230474. Continue. And select the application at the top menu. Here we want ECU Diagnostics. It will go through. ECU is the software which Star uses. The earlier version is called DAS. It will automatically switch to DAS. You have to scroll through the menus. Obviously you have to read every single word of this. Read the menus in German as well. You can see the battery voltage is getting a bit low. I believe that's the consumer battery because I only have the main battery on charge. It's right hand steering. Accept. It's the 474 AMG compressor. Select. Right, so we're going to go for straight into control units because we don't need to do a full test because we know what we want to do. It takes too long to start, especially as our voltage is getting low. We want to go in drive. We accept. We want to go in engine ECU. Select. Now going to communicate with the engine ECU. And you've read all the safety notes. Yes. Right, we want to use initial startup. So we're going to select that. We've got two options, initial start with automatic takeover. Right, so the one we want to select is initial start with automatic takeover. So we're going to select that one from the top of the menu and OK it. The following procedure will guide you through, etc., etc. Start the process with button F2. So hit button F2. Tells us to have the battery maintainer on. To continue, it's F2. Right, the coding has been read. So it's read all the coding on the car now. Continue with the down arrow. Right, so it tells us at this stage, drive authorization transport has not been removed, number of engine starts, blah, blah, blah. Is the immobiliser learning process to be carried out now? We're going to click yes. At this point, we can change the VIN, but we've already done that in the hex file anyway, so we're not worried about that. But if we virginize an ECU for you, you can do it at this point. When you're ready, F7 perform synchronization. So F5 confirmation of the VIN entry. So if we confirm the VIN, if we changed it, that would then confirm the VIN. So we have to switch the ignition off and then on. It's now personalizing that VIN number to the ECU. It says, please start the engine. Now, if you can hear, the pump is on. This time, we are going to crank it. And as you can see, we now have a runner. Back to diagnostics and then follow through on the menus. Is this engine control module to remain fitted in the vehicle? We're going to say yes. Do you really wish to activate the control module? We're going to say yes. It's now activating. Teaching of the drive authorization system, it has been performed. It is now locked to this vehicle. F2 to continue. We've got to do the mixture adaptations. Right, so it tells us here it's going to make some adaptations. So we need engine off, ignition on, park neutral, etc. And then we click yes. It runs through a series of configurations for throttle bodies and things. Switch off the ignition. Wait 10 seconds. Switch on the ignition. Default initialization of the control unit has been performed. Carry on with F2. Initial startup was fully completed. So the only way we can do is go back now. So we go back, we go back, we go back as far as we like, because we are now finished with the diag tool. And we will come right out of the engine control module. There, we're right out. So now we can see we have the key in, we have the mileage displayed, if you can see that. So we have that, and we have a running car. So there we go. You can virginize these and install them. As far as I'm able to, I can only do these with Mercedes Star. I will see if I can put a link in the description below to a reliable supplier of Mercedes Star diagnostics if you don't have one. I'm not slating the aftermarket tools and multi-brand tools because they are absolutely brilliant. It's just sometimes you need dealer tool to do certain jobs. So I think that's just about me wound up for this one. This is whoops, that's me revving that by accident. If you need to switch this off now. If you need to virginize a Mercedes engine ECU, then check us out online, ecuconnection.co.uk. We do hundreds of different programming services, and give us a shout if you ever need anything. Click the like, subscribe, share, leave a comment if you like, and have a lovely day, y'all.